Welcome to Market Pulse by SC Securities and Daily FT. As usual, our effort is to bring you the expert insight for you to have a better pulse about the Sri Lankan equity markets. Sri Lanka, the pearl of Indian Ocean, is known for producing the finest tea in the world for many decades. And if there is one brand which has conquered the world with that finest producer of tea, it is none other than Dilmah. To talk about Dilmah and the tea industry of Sri Lanka, we have with us today Mr. Dilhan Fernando, the Chief Executive Officer of Dilmah. Dilhan, welcome to Market Pulse.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
So, Dilhan, Dilmah holds a proud legacy as a Sri Lankan brand which has gone overseas, and it is a very successful international brand. So, to start off the conversation, tell us a little bit about how this legacy all started and how it has become so successful.
Well, it began with a single person. It began with a young man with a very big dream. At the time, it was the 1950s, and my father at the age of 20, having seen the passion and the commitment with which tea is harvested, when you look at it at a simple level, each one of these cups of tea contain 30 hand-picked leaves. That means somebody has spent time and effort in hand-picking just the finest leaves for your cup of tea. There is nothing more artisanal, more luxurious than that. Now, my father saw this and he wanted to get into the tea industry. Then he went to Mincing Lane, which ironically in London was then the center of the global tea trade, which they don't produce much tea. At least that time they didn't produce any tea in England, but yet that was the center of a global tea trade as a part of the unfortunate colonial economic legacy that the British Empire had. So he went there, and then, quite contrary to his expectation of a celebration of what is great about tea, he found something quite different, because the trade was focused on profit and therefore value reduction. Whereas for us as growers, my father saw at the time, as we see today, the incredible artisanal commitment, the effort that goes into making tea, not only the combination of the influence of nature and so on, but the effort of people. Now, when you then translate that into a commodity to be traded, you end up with something that is completely against the social and economic interests of the country. So my father saw this, but of course, when he conceived that idea, it was 1950, it was a very different time. There was no printing here. There was power issues. There was so many complications, and the trade was dominated by the British. So he had to work his way through, and eventually it was 1985 when he was able to make his first breakthrough, getting his Dilmah tea grown, harvested, ethically made, and packed in Sri Lanka, branded in Sri Lanka, with the profits coming to Sri Lanka. He got it on shelf in Australia in September 1985. That's the potted history of how it all happened.
So now how many countries Dilmah is in?
Well, from that we grew. We are now in over 100 countries. But I must add that our objective is not to say that we are the biggest. We want to maintain our quality, because there is no reward, or there is nothing great about saying that you are the biggest in volume. But what matters for Ceylon tea is value, because it's value that translates to the ethics, the kindness to people, to nature, addressing the challenges that the industry has.
Okay, and Dilhan, now Sri Lanka does not really do much of value-added products exports. When it comes to tea industry also, what we see majority is bulk exports. But Dilmah, of course, is an exception. It's a value-added product. What is the reason behind Sri Lanka is not being geared for value-added exports?
It's a tragedy. Sri Lanka has the finest tea, the finest cinnamon. We have exceptional cardamom, unbelievable pepper. We have an abundance of quality products that extend from our people, that is our tourism potential, to our biodiversity, to the products that I mentioned, to the art and craft. If you were at the culinary art event 2 weeks ago, you would have seen the work of Sri Lankan chefs, incredibly detailed. And if you talk to the international chefs, they would tell you Sri Lankan pastry chefs anywhere in the world are the finest, the finest. The chocolate work, the ice carvings, the precision of their work, exceptional. Yet, we fail to take advantage of that. And I think this is the difference that my father saw, because every skill, whether it is the quality in a cup of tea, every uniqueness, every point of difference needs to be emphasized and needs to be focused on in building value. Now in Sri Lanka, I would say value addition in tea maybe in the region of 30%. But real value addition is when you take a product and you add value through the use of technology, through the use of art, craft, communication, presenting new experiences to engage the consumer, because value addition isn't just saying, look, I've sold something at a high price. It's about delivering an experience where a consumer says, this is worth the price that we are being asked to pay. Now that is the point. We have all of those attributes, but it's probably in the mindset and the marketing failures that we have that we are yet selling our cinnamon as a competitor to the inferior and carcinogenic cassia. We are selling our finest Ceylon tea with all its artisanal attributes as a cheaper alternative to multi-origin blended tea, which has no identity, no personality, no guarantee of craft, no guarantee of soil conservation, and all of the things that we do here today. So whether it is cinnamon or our incredible cashew, the art of our people, our tourism, we need to understand that we have an amazing asset, and that asset extends to charging a fair price in tourism. So my father's philosophy of understanding the concept of value and charging a fair price for the value we offer, not cheating the customer, but giving the customer an experience for which he or she is willing to pay the price, extends to tourism. My brother overlooks and manages our resplendent Ceylon. We have Relais and Chateau resorts, and our room rate is significantly higher than any other in Sri Lanka because we offer an unique experience, and that's a Sri Lankan experience. Our Ceylon teas, if you go on shelf in most countries, you go to Poland, you'll see us sitting at the top of the shelf in terms of price, because we offer a quality product. And what you see happening a few meters away is tasting 10,000 teas each week, selecting just the finest. So it's not just saying, look, I'm just putting a price, I'm putting a beautiful packet. No, it's about honesty. Honesty builds trust. Trust builds value. And so I think the important thing here is, as Sri Lankans, we need to first understand the value of what we have. We need to then frame our proposition. How are we going to engage with the consumer? And today the consumer is very responsive to a message that talks of wellness, talks of provenance, talks of the biodiversity of our nation, and talks of the quality, the taste. You know, tea has everything. So does cinnamon, so does cashew. And Sri Lankan tourism, when you come on, when you go online and you see some of the reviews, they are exceptional. But we need to charge a fair price, because when you discount a commodity, when you discount something as a commodity, you end up by devaluing it. So somebody who looks at, say, the Seychelles, $600, $700 a night, and looks at Sri Lanka, $200 a night, is going to think, you know, that cost probably corresponds to the quality. And yeah, maybe I'll try to go for the Seychelles. Sri Lanka is worth $1,000 plus per night because of the experiences we can offer. Of course, I'm not saying you bring somebody and you put them into a bare room and tell them we are charging $1,000, but build experiences. You can see that happening all around, not just us, of course, but you see wellness experiences, Ayurveda experiences, fine tea experiences, fine gastronomy. You know, there's so much that Sri Lanka offers. So I believe that it is as much a mindset. I believe it is also a relic of the colonialism that also seems to have colonized our minds, in the sense that we need to have the confidence to say we have a great product. We're going to market it as a premium. We're going to charge the right price, because it is only the right price that's going to allow us to pay our workers a fair price, to build innovation into our industry. All of that needs investment. To build sustainability, regenerative practices, to be training, to be building culinary schools, etc. We need all of these to strengthen our proposition, whether it is in tourism, in cinnamon, cardamom, cloves, pepper, or Ceylon tea. So I'm sorry for that complicated response, but I feel very passionately about this.
That's very valuable foods for thought, I would say, for any Sri Lankan businessman out there. So, and also, Dilhan, now Dilmah is an export-oriented business, and the current situation of the high currency fluctuation can be a serious challenge. And would you tell us how this is impacting the industry and Dilmah as well, and also how do you manage to overcome this issue?
We emerged from unprecedented crisis. In the year 2020, following the Easter bombing, we confronted unimaginable. We had never come across challenges like that. We had to build parallel transport networks. We had to build fuel dumps. We had to look at health and safety in a way that we have never had to in the past, quarantine situations. We never stopped for a minute. Currency fluctuations, yes, it's a part of the recovery of our nation. But ultimately, it's also about mindset. We have to be positive. Every problem has a solution. And we are a company of Sri Lankans with a Sri Lankan product, and we believe we can do it. So we will face and we will overcome. Yes, of course, it creates an issue, but there's absolutely no point in crying about it. And I think that the mindset of saying, look, we've got this problem, we can't go further, we need to get over that. And to get over that comes back to your first and second questions, valuing our product. Because for us, we have a brand. So when the currency fluctuations come up, when we have inflationary pressures, we can go to the market and tell our partners, these are the justifications, we need a price increase. Now, when you don't have a brand, you become victim to all of those trends. So you become, really, you lose control of your destiny. There is nothing you can do, because when you sell bulk tea, as an example, it is you against lower cost producers around the world. And so it comes back to the same thing. Value what we have, because we have today a currency crisis, but it's part of our restoration. Tomorrow we may have a climate crisis. We probably will have a climate crisis. Beyond that, we may have another health crisis, perhaps other issues. It is building value, understanding what you have, and crafting it through value addition that is going to help us to build resilience, because all of these things are going to demand investment. So we can manage the short-term volatility of the exchange rates because we have a brand, because we have built up reserves. But imagine the business that is trading on razor-thin margins, that is just existing. When the market comes down, they buy something and export something. How can they possibly survive? And so building resilience involves understanding the value we have and adding value to our product. So I think they're interconnected.
Okay. And Dilhan, Turkey and Russia are two main buyers for Ceylon tea. And in the recent past, we have seen that both these countries, Turkey is going through serious economic challenges and Russia is going through a war. And how these dynamics affect the demand for Ceylon tea, and how do you manage that?
Well, Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Libya, Russia, are traditional markets for Sri Lankan tea. And I think our future and our resilience is to broad-based Ceylon tea. And the reason I say that is that we have been reliant on the same markets virtually since the 1960s. There is absolutely no reason why we should not venture beyond. When we talk to industry insiders, you hear the phrase, oh, we lost that market. Egypt, oh, we lost that market. Yeah, we lost it to Kenya, but we lost it on price. But Ceylon tea is not a price-driven product. It's a quality and a sustainability-driven product. And so I would like to perhaps suggest that, yes, today it's Turkey and Russia suffering economic crisis. Tomorrow it could be Europe. It could be something else. But we need to broad base our markets. We cannot stay reliant on the same 5 or 6 markets. Whenever Iran has an issue, of course, we have a crisis in Sri Lanka. When Iraq, our number 1 market, has some sort of import issue or embargo or sanctions or whatever it is, Sri Lanka suffers. It's really an unsustainable and quite a narrow-minded approach to keep doing what we do, because all that has happened is that in real terms the prices have come down. If you look at Russia, going back to the 1990s, in the time of the CIS, my father was doing business with Soyuz Pluto Import, the government commodity import unit, and we sold good Ceylon tea. And at that time, Dilmah fine Ceylon tea was offered across Russia. We used to ship 400-500 containers sometimes per shipload, and it was shipload because Soyuz Pluto Import would send us vessels, and we would be assigned a certain quantity or number of containers on each of those vessels. But since then, the Russian buyers came to Sri Lanka and said, oh, I'm buying Dilmah at this price, can you do cheaper? And unfortunately, very sadly, our colleagues, not understanding where this would end up, queued up to offer cheaper than Dilmah, saying, oh, it's the same as Dilmah, but it's cheaper. Now, what they should really have done is, okay, you're getting $2 from Dilmah, well, my tea is better, and I will give you $2.05. That would have given us a very different situation than today, because Ceylon tea had such an amazing reputation in Russia. But what happened was, our distributor was importing Dilmah. He thought, okay, look, I can make more money by having my own tea. Why should I import and supply Dilmah tea? He came to my father and said, look, here's a design with an elephant on it. I want you to supply my tea. My father said, no, sorry. So, of course, he went to other exporters, and they all queued up. Price went lower. It went lower the following year. Every time, and suddenly this guy thought, my goodness, I'm onto a gold mine, because I've got the strength of Ceylon tea, and I can get cheaper. When everyone I go to is giving me cheaper. Finally, he said, okay, I'm setting up my own plant, and now I don't need Ceylon tea anymore. Sri Lanka built all the major brands in Russia today. But do they contain Ceylon tea? Very little, if at all, because Ceylon tea is expensive because of its quality. But instead, like Egypt, a market that was virtually captive for Ceylon tea is today using Kenyan and Ugandan teas. The reason is our inability to value what we have. Because value means you need to be creative about communicating. Communication means you engage with customers, not just say, look, Ceylon tea, the finest in the world. Engage. How are we going to, talk about how the product is relevant to their health, to their wellness, to taste. Look at what we have. We have light, bright teas from Nurelia, spectacular. You have strong, earthy teas coming from the Gaul district, from Ratnapura, in intensity. You have brightness, you have malty, you have everything you want in taste. We need to build on that. We shouldn't be competing on price, because price is a bottomless pit. And that really ends up as really a cycle of decline that ends in disaster, like what happened in Russia, where from the dominant origin for quality tea, we come down to virtually nothing. in terms of all the major brands. Of course, for us, to answer your question, we continue to supply into Russia. Turkey has a very high, over 100% import duty on packed tea. So we don't consider it an important market. It is important for bulk tea, but we don't believe that bulk tea in any sense is important for the future of Sri Lanka. It's just passing on the reputation of Sri Lanka at a discount and saying, here's the bulk tea, take it, mix it with whatever you want, and pack it. That's not the way to market. We should be controlling, like French wine. If you go to a wine producer in Bordeaux and say, look, I want 2,000 liters of your wine, I'm going to pack it in Sri Lanka and mix it with wine from India or somewhere else, they'll say, no, forget it. You are not going to use our name because we are France. We are proud of our wine. We'll sell you a bottled product, but as for you bottling, sorry. So I think that way we need to understand the value. We need to build a marketing mindset that allows us to take advantage of what we have.
And as you correctly mentioned, the Kenya and India emerged. These are some strong suppliers in the world tea industry. However, the quality matters. And also India and Kenya both are facing some labor issues at the moment, severe issues. And does that mean it creates more opportunities for Ceylon tea? And is there any way that we can capture that opportunities?
I think it creates more opportunities, but probably not in the way you're thinking. In the sense that when there is supply disruption, it is inevitably, it's temporary. But where it creates an opportunity is if we go to consumers and say, look, during the pandemic, most countries either mechanized and retrenched 20, 30,000 workers and put them into misery, or they abandoned minimum wage mechanisms and reduced the wage. But in Sri Lanka, we actually increased our wage. We increased the wage, we increased the social commitment. We're not perfect, but you go to the streets of Berlin or streets of London, you don't have to walk more than 100 feet to see somebody in misery, somebody without healthcare, somebody in deep trouble. So all of those people who come here, take photographs of somebody and go and put it in the newspaper and say we are mistreating our workers, they need to look to themselves to understand who is at fault. The world is telling us we want a cheaper product. When we go and offer a product at a fair price, we get kickback, we get told, no, cheaper. Why you have to compete with this country, or you have to compete with that country. But our product is valuable because we want to take care of our workers. We provide free education, we provide free medical care and all of this. So we need to understand the value of all that. Yes, Kenya and India have short-term labor issues, but ultimately we should not seek to exploit that because that will be at most a short-term benefit. We need to understand the bigger picture. Where does Sri Lanka fit in this competitive environment? We should not be seeking to compete with them because it will end up price competition. We should compete on quality. We should talk about the beauty of Nuarelias, talk about how valuable it is. When you go to any restaurant, you will find coffee in 4 or 5 variations, $5, $6, $7 per cup. Tea, you'd be struggling to get $2 to $3. Why? We have incredible teas. We have variety. You have 10,000 different alternatives outside this door. So we need to celebrate that. And I think we need to understand what we have and create a communication and our commercial strategy around that. And actually what is important is not to sell 300 million kilos. What is important is to sell 150 million kilos of Ceylon tea profitably. When I say profitably, it must be profitable for the environment. We have to invest in soil regeneration, we have to invest in biochar, we have to invest in a multitude of different interventions, agroforestry. We need to make sure that it is profitable for the community. We need to integrate the livelihoods of people into our business model. So for example, what happens to elderly people when they retire from work on the plantations? What happens to the children on the plantation? There is a These are not easy solutions because it's a complex environment. As an example, when people come and tell us, look, you're not looking after people on your plantations. Yeah, the British put the people there, but today less than 20% of the people who live on the plantations work on the plantations. So what do? Do you tell the estates, okay, you're losing money on tea because the market is against you, because the buyers are depressing the price, and still you have to look after people who don't work for you? No, you can't. That's unsustainable. It's unethical. And so we need to understand, how does this construct, how does the concept of a living wage, how do we achieve it? Well, we can achieve it by first of all going to the world and saying we produce the finest tea on earth. We look after our workers, we look after our environment, and we want a fair price. And so if you do this, then you will find between the cost of production, net sale average, and export FOB, you will find a reasonable gap. Then we can use that gap to benefit social, environmental issues. This year, Dilmah will generate almost over 900 million rupees for our 13 centers around Sri Lanka, supporting children with Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, schools on the plantations, hospitals on the plantations and beyond, environmental education, climate change centers. Now, we don't need to do this, but we feel obliged because we are a Sri Lankan company benefiting from a Sri Lankan product, and we have to share. This is my father's philosophy, a business built on family values. But we can do it because we have a brand, because we tell our customers, we will give you the finest tea, but you have to pay a fair price for it. Now, if all of Sri Lanka did this, and we took that 30%, and all that 30% were to work on premium pricing, then you would have a happy customer because they'd have a better quality tea, you'd have a happy worker and a happy environment. It's not so simple. We still need to push. 30% is not enough. That 30% includes private labeling. It means that I pack a product and I ship it to a customer under that customer's name. That's not value addition. That's giving our natural benefits, the benefits of branding and value addition that we have in Sri Lanka, and passing it on to the world. You can do one or two of them, but you can't build a business, and you certainly can't build a national brand strategy or value addition strategy around that.
And Dilhan, the chemical fertilizer ban which came up on 2021, that created some serious issues for plantation sector as a whole. But now the regulations have changed. What is the current situation? Are we recovering, and how fast we are recovering? What is the situation now?
That ban was rank stupidity. It was purely political. It's unfortunate because a failure of competence and the inability of people who should have spoken out to speak out caused a catastrophe that is still rippling through our country months, many months and years later. Now, we have recovered to an extent in the sense that the availability of fertilizer and the fertilizer that has been since applied is now seeing more normal crops coming through. And if you look at it, try to find a little bit of light at the end of that self-imposed tunnel that created so much difficulty for Sri Lanka. I suppose the little bit of light is that people are thinking a little bit more about sustainable means of regenerative agriculture, alternate methods. And I think this is important. Not to say that the fertilizer ban was good. It was not. But we need to now also think, yes, the fertilizer is back, but we should never think of it as business as usual. You've probably been feeling the heat in Colombo recently. Well, I spoke to a colleague in the UK yesterday. We were on a Zoom call together, and he said it is so hot. It was blisteringly hot. This is a reality. So what we do now should not be reliant on fertilizer, because the stupidity of the fertilizer ban was the ban in itself. But what we recommended as several members of the tea industry who were part of that initial task force until we were kicked out, was that there should be progressive, set a target, 5%, 10%. That would have been a very wise and insightful action. In several countries, they are working on this model, but their time frame is 30, 40 years, not overnight. And so yes, we are recovering, but the ramifications are still being felt, because the economic impact, also to an extent, of course, it was much to do with corruption and theft from the national treasury and so on, but it was equally precipitated by this food security issue that happened there.
Okay, and also Dilhan, now in a different note, the customer preference for tea, do you see any changes in the trends? Like, as an example, maybe the new generation is shifting towards substitutes like coffee or juices. What kind of preferences you see? Like, what are the trends you see with the new generation?
Well, consumers today are used to a multitude of options. Wherever you go, in Colombo, you can see it to an extent. You walk into a restaurant, you don't come with a predetermined notion of saying, I'm going to drink tea or I'm going to drink coffee. What's on offer? Chicken looks good, I'll try the chicken. What's on offer? After I like this dessert, looks good, I'll take it. It's up to us to make tea look good. And does tea look good? Infinite variety in taste. And the taste is determined in tea not by the manufacturer, it's determined by nature. You have Nuarelia teas. Can you produce a Nuarelia tea in Ratnapura? No, because there are inherent geographical and climatic characteristics that define that light, bright tea. Nawalapitiya region, completely different. Maskelia region, different. Ratnapura region, different. Gaul district, completely different. This is an incredible blessing in the sense that if we can communicate this positively and say, look, here's what we have in Sri Lanka. It's not just Ceylon tea. There's a multitude of different options. You've got tea for your morning. You've got tea for your afternoon. You've got tea to have with your salad. You've got tea to have with your biryani. Make the product relevant. Make it look good to the consumer. Create occasions. The new consumer isn't moving away from tea. We are simply not evolving in communicating what tea is. Today, tea is more relevant than any other beverage. There is no herb like tea. It's varied in taste. It's natural plant antioxidant goodness, unprecedented. L-theanine, the ECGC, so many other elements, variety of taste. But importantly also the fact that in tea, if we build a stronger ethical and environmental sustainability proposition, you have a compelling offer. You have something that a consumer will say, okay, look, when I drink this tea, not only am I doing something good for my body, I'm engaging my taste buds and appealing my taste buds, I'm enjoying something, tea for mental health, L-theanine, calming, polyphenols for natural health benefits, but also I'm helping tea plantation workers in Sri Lanka because when they produce this and I pay a fair price for this, they get a fair wage. So what's not to like? We just need to be able to communicate that and make tea look good.
And that's, I think, exactly what you do with the Dilmah tea launch concept, making it more of a lifestyle.
Building experiences.
Building experiences.
Exactly.
And Dilhan, last but not least, what does future stands for Sri Lankan tea industry? What do you see in the future? Where do we stand? And what kind of benefits we will be getting as a country?
I need to top up my cup of tea before I answer that.
Yes.
But can I offer you some tea?
I'm fine.
Oh, you're good.
Okay.
Yes, thanks. Great. So I think the future has never been so bright as now. And the reason for that, Gen Z, the younger generation, millennials, slightly older, but they are conditioned by the pandemic for health and wellness. They're looking for products that offer health and wellness. Any scientist, or in fact, if you go online to PubMed, you'll find 46,000 research papers that confirm the natural antioxidant goodness in tea. So it is scientifically proven. Now, when you connect that to the fact that tea has a therapeutic impact on every single lifestyle disease, diabetes, tea helps the body synthesize sugars. It protects against type 2 diabetes. Mental health, L-theanine enhances cognitive ability but also enhances mood. Stress, tea reduces the impact of stress on the human body. Heart disease, tea reduces the possibility of stroke through its capillary actions. Stroke, osteoporosis, the list is endless. And that's in a cup, or at least the research is around 5 cups of tea a day. So all the major issues that we confront in this. Now, it's not about taking this out and making it into a tablet. No, because tea comes with a combination of 400 different elements, which comprises the flavor, the goodness, the texture, etc. Now, you can't extract one and say, okay, I'm going to give you this gazillion times benefit of health in tea. It doesn't work that way, because you extract and synthesize, you lose the benefit of the combination. Now, combine that with a story that connects to the beauty of Norelia, of the city of gems in Ratnapura, of the story of the influence of nature, the art of tea making, the artisanship in tea making, and you have a very compelling proposition. But again, it's coming back to valuing what we have, because in Sri Lanka, we have a group of people who will say, look, it's just tea. We want to sell it at the cheapest possible price, and we want to get the biggest possible quantity. It's not about that. It's about understanding what we have and about saying, look, how do I make this relevant to a consumer? Wellness, taste, different occasions. We can combine with the culinary. I mean, we did recently, a couple of weeks ago, we did a Real High Tea Challenge. We've been doing that from 2007, talking about something unique. We can connect it with Sri Lankan food. Again, a undervalued opportunity. Wherever in the world you go, you see Indian restaurants. But Sri Lankan food is magnificent on its own right. I'm not comparing the two, but our use of spices, incredibly complex, the artisanship, to value that. It's a question of mindset and value. And the future for Ceylon tea has never been brighter than today, in my opinion.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Dilhan, for finding a time for us in your busy schedule and sharing your great insights with us. And I love the way that you talk about the tea industry, and especially about Sri Lanka. There's so much passion. I think that's what exactly we need as a businessman in Sri Lanka, to take our brands, our products to the global market, to the international market. And I wish you all the very best to take Dilmah to greater heights, even than at the current status. And I wish you all the very best, and thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you.
It's been a privilege.
And we will be meeting with you with another episode of Market Pulse in the coming weeks. And thank you for watching. We will be back soon. Thank you.